galley slave.
Richard Burton was nominated for an Oscar 7 times, as far back as 1953, in one of his earliest Hollywood films, The Role. But the movie community never quite figured out what to do with the Welsh-born stage actor with the magnificent speaking voice. It wasn't until later in films like Beckett that Burton was able to marry that theatrical eloquence with film style.
So long as Beckett must improvise his honor from day to day, he will serve you faithfully.
Beckett was another Oscar nomination, as was Anne of a Thousand Days.
I will marry Anne if it breaks the earth in two like an apple and flings the two halves into the void.
When Richard Burton made Night of the Iguana in Mexico in 1964, the presence of Elizabeth Taylor, who was not in the film, gave the movie its notoriety. Their highly publicized romance began a few years earlier on the set of Cleopatra, when Burton was signed to play Mark Antony opposite Taylor in the title role. Their romance made Burton an international celebrity, but his critics said the relationship eroded his genius. They co-starred in many films, the best of which was probably Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf.
You can stand it.
I cannot stand it.
You can stand it. You married me for it.
This battle of wills was carried over into real life as the pair married, divorced, remarried, and divorced again. Once the highest-paid actor of his time, Burton's film career faded into mediocre movies such as The Medusa Touch or action-adventure films like The Wild Geese. To rekindle his career, Burton in 1982 returned to the stage with his ex-wife in the play Private Lives. The play itself was blasted by the critics, did fair business, and then closed in Los Angeles when the curiosity factor passed. Burton was working on a film version of George Orwell's 1984.
There is no loyalty except loyalty to the party. There is no love except love of Big Brother. All competing pleasures we will destroy. If you want a vision of the future, Winston, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever.
Richard Burton has had a home in Salini for over 20 years. It's said he liked the place, not only because it's beautiful, but because the villagers were discreet and never gossiped about him. His wife Sally left the house briefly today with his agent. She's said to be very shocked. She discovered something was wrong when she couldn't wake him yesterday morning, and an operation at a Geneva hospital wasn't successful. The actor John Hurt happened to be in Geneva filming, and he rushed to the Burtons' home. Today he recalled their last meeting.
We had dinner on Friday night, and it was a very pleasant occasion. And I stayed in his guest chalet overnight, left in the morning after a pleasant conversation. And he said au revoir, and we'll see you again later in the week.
He was okay when you last saw him?
Oh, very much so, yeah.
Burton's daughter Kate arrived this afternoon. Her father's last acting role was with her in a television drama. And his agent, Valerie Douglas, said he had plans for a lot more work, both film and stage performances.
No, I just think you push it out a little louder and a little larger than one does in front of the camera. But,
You'll probably try no stage anymore.
No, you don't upstage. I'll teach you about that. You downstage.
One of the finest actors.
One of the finest.
Sorry.
Where's the prize for that?
What's that? Went for 19 hours.
Then I'll be back, but
What about the words you sort of later on?
After the service, Richard Burton's body was taken to a small cemetery. His fifth wife, Sally, led the mourners. Recently, Burton had said, "This is my last marriage. The next one will be to the grave." It happened sooner than he thought. The mourners were a strange mix, reflecting Hollywood glamour and Welsh grit. They summed up what had been so dear to Richard Burton, his Welsh roots and his stardom. Burton's wish to be buried in Switzerland upset some of his Welsh family, but he was laid to rest in a mountainside which didn't look all that different from the green grass of home. Sally Burton placed a letter on her husband's coffin, along with his favourite book of verse. His brothers sang a Welsh rugby song. Later, the family retired to Richard Burton's local, the railway station cafe, where his brothers got to know some of the neighbours who'd made Burton call this place home.
These people are lovely people, and I don't blame him for wanting to stay here. But at the end of the day, the spirit is in Wales.
On Saturday, Wales will remember Richard Burton at a memorial service, and the word here is that Liz Taylor is likely to be there as well.
Both the actor's widow and his brothers and sisters still living in Pontrhydyfen were determined that this service should not be turned into a circus by the presence of Miss Taylor. Nevertheless, over 1,000 people turned up to hear it relayed by loudspeaker, whilst 400 more crammed into the small chapel. Much of the service was in Welsh, a language Burton understood, and, as in Switzerland, the actor's daughter, Kate, read an extract from the work of another Welshman, Dylan Thomas.
Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Wild men who caught and sang the sun in flight, and learned too late they grieved it on its way. Do not go gentle into that good night.
This service was both for Burton's family and the villagers of Pontrhydyfen.